Hi guys, welcome to Snails and Fairy Dust. Today I'm going to show you how to make this peyote stitch bead. It's made with flat peyote stitch, not tubular peyote stitch. And there is a free pattern that you could get from my website. So you could download this pattern to follow along for free from my website. Find it in the link below. I made these beads originally to make a necklace for my 13-year-old because she was going to a Blackpink concert and she wanted a black and pink necklace. So that is what I did because, that's what moms do. These are some of the other beads you can make, some other styles that I played with before I came up with this pattern. But it's a really fun, easy little intro to peyote stitch project. So let's get started. Okay, so I am using Fireline and a 6-pound weight. Like I usually do, my favorite. I have size 11 seed beads. You'll find the exact numbers on the free download. I have a size 12 beading needle, and now we're going to get started. To begin, I'm going to cut about 4 feet of Fireline, and I'm going to just use a stopper bead to start with. So just take any old bead that is different from the beads you're using so you don't get confused, and you're going to pull it down towards the end of your string, wrap your needle around and come back up through it. And then you just have this bead that you can push up and down and you'll pull off later, but for now it's going to keep your beads from falling off. And then I'm going to pick up 11 beads. And in this pattern, it's 5 of the black beads, 1 white bead, and then 5 more black beads. And then I'm going to take that and slide it down towards that stopper bead, like so. And now I'm going to pick up 1 bead at a time. I skip a bead, and then bring my needle through the next bead. And when I pull it, it's going to give me this little sort of triangle formation, like that. And then I pick up my next bead in the pattern, I skip a bead, take my needle through the following bead, and I pull that. And now you have 2 little triangles formed there, like so. And then I'm going to do that again. The next bead in my pattern is actually white, but I'm going to skip a bead and then go through the next bead, like that. And then I'm going to do it again. There's another white bead. And again, I skip a bead, bring my needle through the following bead. And basically those first 11 beads that you strung on, they're going to turn into the first 2 rows of your peyote stitch. So what we're doing now is the 3rd row. So I'm skipping another bead, adding a bead, and now we are almost done. But you see we have 3 rows of peyote stitch forming now. And then I'm going to take my last bead, and I don't have a bead to skip and then go through the next one. So I'm going to come around and go into that last bead from the other direction. So I'm going to come into that bead and down into the bead below it. And when I pull, I'm going to get that new bead I added to sit right where the others have sat. And then in order to get around back up to where we need to be, I am going to bring my needle up through the bead next to the one I just came out of, and basically do a little angle up to the tail bead like that. So you see we're going diagonally across from the right to the left. And then we're coming back through that bead we would have just ended on. Sorry, it's hard to do this under the camera. Okay, and there we go. And now we are ready to start a new row. That is the trickiest part of this whole thing, is starting your first 3 rows. After that, with odd count peyote stitch, it's not that difficult. And if you're used to even count peyote stitch, that's the difference. And this is just that ending. You have to do a little workaround to get where you want to be. But otherwise, it's exactly the same as even count peyote stitch. So here we are. We're going to add our 4th row now. And so now we're just picking up our beads and we are adding them in between these up beads, just like we did in the previous row, following along with your pattern. If you're looking at the pattern, you can either look at it visually, or I also have included the word pattern. So the word pattern will say sort of like 3 blacks, 2 whites, that sort of thing. And you just follow along with each row. with the correct number of beads, which is why it's important to know what bead row you're working on. So this is row 4. And I have a white bead. And then there's a black bead. And I just want to show you, when we turn around this time, it's going to be like traditional flat, even peyote. But when we get to the end of the next row, you'll see where there's a different turnaround. But for now, let's just turn it around. And then I'm just going to go right in to the next up bead. So I've picked up my next bead. I'm going to take it through the next up bead. And I'm always going in opposite directions with each row. I turn my beadwork around so that I'm always working from the bottom towards me to the top here. But technically, you're working in different directions. It's just really tricky to sort of work backwards towards yourself, I find. So just don't be afraid to turn your beadwork to make it comfortable for you. So here we are. I'm almost at the end of that row. And I had actually messed up my pattern, which is why we had that little glitch there, because I had to splice in the proper bead colors. And so now for my last bead, there's no bead for me to go into. So I'm going to take my needle and bring it through the thread bridge on the outside edge of my work, like that. And then that bead sits right there where we need it to. And then I bring the bead needle back through it, and we can just carry on like we were doing any sort of ordinary row of even count peyote stitch. And so now we're just going to work to the end of that bead, and the end of that row, and I hope you were able to sort of get this. If you are having a hard time, I have another video on here that's a bracelet, an odd count peyote bracelet, and that one's a bit slower, and will take you through a bit more step by step. But I figured a lot of you have already seen that video, so I just wanted to do this quickly, a little refresher, if you may, to get you through. And obviously, you could use the same method to make a ring or a bracelet. You would just carry on the pattern, keep repeating it, and then you would be able to do either of those things. But in this case, I am making a little tube bead. So here we are. I just wanted to show you one more time that turnaround when you get to the end of a row that doesn't have the bead to go through. So let's just go through that quickly. I'm going to zoom through this here. I have a pink bead and another pink bead if we don't get stuck. Now a white bead. And then here for this last one, there's nothing to go through. So I'm going to take my needle, bring it underneath the thread bridge on the outside of my beadwork, flip my beadwork around, and then work back up through that bead I've just added, and I'm ready to go. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at closing this bead we're making. So here I am with my completed beadwork. This is what you should have, and you can see how if you were just to continue this pattern, you'd have a cute bracelet for sure. But what we're going to do is we're going to close this up, and one side is up beads and one side is down beads. So we're going to zip them together like a zipper. Bring my needle through the first up bead on one side, and then I bring it through the up bead on the opposite side. And then I go back through to the other side and continue to zigzag back and forth like this. So through this side, through the up bead on the other side. If you've watched my ring video, you're definitely going to recognize this technique. Okay, so we're going back and forth. Actually, this is my favorite part when you're making some sort of ring with peyote stitch, because it just the way the seam disappears, I think is really cool. And there are just so many possibilities with these beads. You can make long tubes, you can make tons of tubes, you could bead it with seed beads, you could put it on a chain. I think there's a lot of creative options available with this technique. So now here we are at the end, and I'm going to give it a little tug to pull all of those little seams together. And you see it's just disappeared. Lovely. I love that. And so to finish that off, I am just going to weave my thread back down through that seam just to secure it properly. And then I will end my thread by wrapping it around two sets of 2 beads, or a set of 2 beads, to really create some tension. So here I am, I've made it to one end. Now I'm just going to work that back through to really make sure it's secure. And you can make these little peyote stitch beads. You could do it over another bead. You can make it really wide. When I was a kid, I used to make them to put on my braids, which was really fun. You could do like sort of beaded hair wraps for the summer. Actually, maybe I'll do a tutorial on that because my teenager would love that for the summer. So that thread is done, and we can clip it. And then I'm just going to take the tail end from where we started, thread that, and do the exact same thing. Just thread that needle, weave it back in, create some tension, and make sure you're just like weaving in, making your thread disappear. Find 2 beads next door to each other where you can wrap around a few times and really secure that thread. So you finish that up and meet me back here, and I'll show you some examples of what we could do with these little beaded beads now that we have them. Okay, I'm going to do my final clip. And here we are. We have this cute little beaded bead. I love these. I could make them all day. It's very satisfying because it happens quickly. And so now I'm going to show you some examples. I have this, it's a beading chain, sterling silver beading chain. It's 7 millimeters, 0.7 millimeters. And I'm putting on these little 3 millimeter like crystal beads I have. And I'm going to show you why in a second. I found that the 3 millimeter bead is perfect size to stick inside of the tube to give it some structure so that it's not, going to get squished when you press it. You could also thread seed beads into the bead. You could make your peyote stitch over another bead to give it structure. For the purposes of this project, this is what I came up with. There's so many different ways you could do it. But I've put these 2 3 millimeter beads and I've shoved them inside the tube, and they are in there, and they've given my tube this nice little structure, like strength to it. And I have it on this silver beading chain, which is 0.7 millimeters. I really like working with this chain lately. And I could then turn that into a necklace. But what I did is my daughter really wanted some pearls. These are actually glass pearls. They're not real pearls, vegan pearls, 100%. And she wanted some sort of rhinestone things to match these rhinestone earrings she has. And these pink rhinestones match perfectly. I also have this clasp. I put the clasp on. It's a lobster claw clasp with little like crimped ends. So I put these little tubes on and I crimp them. That is a whole nother episode. If that's something you would want me to show you how to do, then let me know. But I just wanted to show you how I put that together for her. And I hope you enjoyed this. And don't forget, you can get a link to the pattern below. And I hope I'll see you soon. All right, bye.